Can you share with us what that moment was like?
The first second I saw him, I couldn't believe what I saw. After that, my next thought was, how am I going to wake my husband up to help me? I never got past that thought because I started screaming, and the next thing I knew he was there. We got him down. If you don't think there's a hard thing in life, I had to do CPR on my own son, knowing that in my heart that he wasn't with us anymore. But I did it anyway. To go from there, it's just numbness. It's pain. It's disbelief.
You literally went to sleep knowing that he had had an off night, as you mentioned, had been at a Sweet 16 party, and when you awoke, he essentially was gone.
He was gone.
How many times have you asked yourself what happened in those couple of hours in his mind to make this decision?
All the time. We want to know what happened, what changed between the time we talked to him and the time he made this decision. We want to know why we didn't hear him. As my husband says, I never sleep. I don't sleep through anything. You know, any noise ever made in the house, I know it. I didn't hear a thing. It's like, why? Why didn't I hear it? Why didn't we know there was a problem? But he seemed like himself. He's, you know, it's 11:30, a little after 11. We went in to his room. After we talked to him, I went in and talked to him again. I would have said he was fine. He's like, Mom, I'm tired. I'm like, sure you are. It's, you know, it's late.
Many times when we hear this kind of tragedy, we later learn that the individual who was involved had a history of depression or behavioral problems or just difficulty dealing with teenage life. You tell us that Scotty didn't fall into any of those categories, and perhaps that's what's most frustrating and befuddling to you as parents and to anyone who knew him and loved him, because he didn't fall into a specific characterization.
Correct. He loved life. He, a week before when his friend completed suicide, he stood there and said, how can you do this? How can you do this and be so selfish? Do this to your parents, your sister, you know, your brothers, your friends. He stood and told us that. We talked about it. As I told him, you know, over the years, suicide never solved any problem. And it didn't. I don't know if it solved his, but it certainly created a lot for not only us, but his friends and family.
And you mentioned that he had a good friend who had completed suicide, and then no sooner was your family in the midst of trying to recover from Scotty's completion than his cousin, I understand, completed suicide.
Yes.
Do you think that one child is influenced by what another does? Because so many times we do hear of these so-called clusters.
I'd like to say no. I don't think that they, you know, it's not like, oh, he did it, I'm going to do it. Does it weigh in their mind? Probably. In the case of my nephew, I think he just missed my son so much that he just could not bear to be without him anymore. They were very, very close, you know, and he knows what we went through. To do it again, he could not have thought it through.
Well, so many times this is an impulsive act. As we mentioned at the very beginning of the show, we've talked about the idea that sometimes there are young people who are in the throes of depression or on some sort of medication, but for many of these young people, it's just an impulsive act, one that I'm sure everyone who loves them wishes they could take back. That's why we're doing this show, so that we can put the word out there and you can have a dialogue. And if you are a parent, you can watch for warning signs that we'll be sharing with you later on.